Welcome to the sleeping Hourglass. Tonight, we walk into the hush of ancient sand and moonlit tents where one man stands at a quiet crossroads. His name is Lot, nephew of Abraham, wanderer between tents and cities, a life shaped not by battles or crowns, but by choices and their lingering echoes. This is a journey through scripture, from the wide plains of Canaan to the smoke rising over Sodom. If you find comfort here, you're always welcome to return. A quiet tap of support helps keep this peaceful space alive. The air over Canaan is vast and still, stretched like a great silence between tents and stars. The herds move like shadows against the light, their bells faint in the dusk. Abraham's camp breathes with calm purpose. Fires lit, servants moving quietly, the scent of bread and wool in the wind. Beside him stands Lot, his nephew, his companion through the long years of wandering. They share not only blood but memory, the road from Ar, the promise of unseen land, the echo of God's call that had turned their feet toward the unknown. Now, the land they once entered together feels crowded. The flocks of Abraham and the flocks of Lot graze over the same hills, and the earth beneath their feet begins to whisper of tension. Shepherds argue beside the wells. Their voices rise and fade with the wind. There is no malice in it, only the burden of abundance. The land cannot bear them both. Abraham, gentle in wisdom and calm in faith, sees the strain before it hardens. He looks upon Lot not as a rival, but as a son once trusted to his care. The years between them weigh softly in his heart. All the miles walked, the tents raised, the prayers whispered beneath strange stars. So he speaks not as one commanding, but as one offering peace. Let there be no strife between me and you, Abraham says, for we are brothers. His voice carries no bitterness, only quiet resolve. Is not the whole land before you? Separate yourself, I pray you, from me. If you take the left hand, I will go to the right, or if you take the right hand, I will go to the left. Lot listens. The offer glows in the evening light, generous, almost sorrowful. He turns his gaze from the tent to the horizon, where the hills fall away into the valley of the Jordan. From that height, the land below looks like a painted dream. The plain spreads out like a river of green, watered by the Jordan that winds through it like a silver thread. Palm trees sway, and the air shimmers with promise. To the east, cities glint in the distance, names whispered by travelers. Sodom, Gomorrah, Zor, thriving, alive, rich in trade and laughter. Lot's eyes rest there. He sees the abundance, the ease, the beauty of the land before its fall. The text is quiet about his thoughts, but his choice speaks for him. Perhaps he sees comfort where Abraham sees calling. Perhaps the lushness of the plains stirs something restless. A longing to belong, not to the wandering life of tents, but to walls and fields and certainty. He lifts his eyes and he chooses. So Lot journeys east. There is no quarrel, no farewell speech. The parting happens with quiet dignity, as though both men understand that this, too, is part of the larger design. Abraham remains in the land of Canaan, his tent standing as a mark of faith upon the earth. Lot moves toward the Jordan, toward the well-watered plains, toward a beauty that will not endure. The evening folds around Abraham's camp. Smoke rises gently from the fires, curling into the star-filled sky. He watches his nephew's caravan fade into the distance. The camels, the servants, the long shadows crossing the valley floor. There is no anger in him, only the calm of one who trusts what he cannot yet see. In the quiet of his heart, Abraham knows that not all separations are losses. some are beginnings clothed in distance. Lot, meanwhile, walks into the promise of green. The valley is everything it seemed from afar, fertile, generous, alive. The Jordan sings beside him, and the ground yields easily to the touch of his herds. He pitches his tent toward the east. Near the city of Sodom, the walls rise like gold in the light of dawn, and the sounds of life, laughter, song, the hum of trade, drift across the fields. To the weary traveller, it feels like arrival. After years of dust and tents, of wandering beside a man chosen by heaven, perhaps Lot believes this is where his story will settle. The scripture says little more in this moment, only that Lot chose all the plain of Jordan and pitched his tent toward Sodom. And yet, beneath those simple words, a shadow stirs, because Sodom, though bright with earthly splendor, carries another sound beneath its music. The slow hum of corruption, the faint ache of mercy soon to be withdrawn. But Lot does not know this yet. He walks among its green fields, and the air feels safe. The river runs clear, the soil gives fruit, and life blooms around him like reward. Still, the echo of Abraham's tent seems to follow him. That life of open sky, that quiet rhythm of prayer. Sometimes, perhaps, at night, when the city lights flicker against the plain, he remembers the stars above Canaan and the man who stood beneath them, believing in something beyond sight. In time, the land grows still again. Abraham remains in Canaan, and the Lord speaks to him, reaffirming the promise that the land, all of it, north and south, east and west, shall belong to his seed. The moment is tender. Even after the parting, grace does not diminish. Abraham builds another altar, as he always does, marking the earth not with walls but with worship. And Lot, unseen by the text for a while, settles near the city that gleams in the valley. His story will unfold from that choice, from that glance toward beauty, from that journey eastward. The tents will draw nearer the gates, and soon the line between dwelling and city will blur. But for now, in this first quiet chapter of his life apart, he rests in what seems like peace. Night falls over both men, over Abraham's tent and Lot's new home near the plain. The stars are the same, the sky equally vast, yet their paths have already begun to diverge. One walks in promise, the other in prosperity. Both are watched by the same God who called them from awe, and both, in their own way, are being led toward the fire that will reveal what endures. The crickets hum through the grass, and the Jordan murmurs to itself in the moonlight. A breeze moves between the tents and the cities, carrying with it the faint scent of salt, a whisper of what is to come. For every journey of faith begins with a choice, and every choice casts a shadow that lengthens with time. In the stillness of night, Lot's tent faces the plains. The lights of Sodom flicker in the distance like stars fallen to earth. Soon he will rise and walk toward them, and the choice that seemed so full of life will begin to turn toward ash. The morning light spills softly across the land of Canaan, touching every hill and hollow with quiet gold. The air carries the faint cry of herdsmen and the bleating of sheep that graze on distant slopes. Lot walks alone for a time, his shadow long upon the ground, his thoughts heavy with decision. Behind him lies Abraham's camp, the tents where faith breathes freely beneath the open sky. Ahead, the horizon glows with the promise of something easier, something beautiful. He pauses on a ridge where the wind smells of grass and dust. Below him spreads the plain of the Jordan, green, unbroken, and glistening like a mirror beneath the sun. The river winds through it in patient silver curves, giving life to every field it touches. Palm groves rise in gentle clusters, and the soil glows rich with fruit and water. To the eye it is perfection. The scripture itself calls it like the garden of the Lord. And Lot, seeing it, feels the quiet pull of that likeness, as though Eden might yet be found somewhere eastward, if only one dares to settle there. He looks again, and he decides. The voice of Abraham's offer still echoes behind him. If you go to the left, I will go to the right. It was said without rivalry, without measure. The older man had let him choose freely, content in faith that the promise of God was greater than land or boundary. But Lot's eyes, guided by reason and desire, rest upon the well-watered plain. He sees the abundance, the ease, the flourishing that the valley offers, and it feels right. It feels safe. The plains gleam like a promise that can be touched, and so he sets out. Lot gathers his herds, his servants, his tents, his family. The ground trembles with the slow march of camels, the soft lowing of cattle, the rustle of people moving forward with quiet expectation. The journey eastward feels like the beginning of something prosperous. Each step takes him farther from Abraham's quiet altars, farther from the still places of prayer, and closer to the hum of human cities. As the days pass, the land changes. The rough stones and dry hills give way to meadows, to riverside reeds, to the scent of growing things. The valley is alive. Birds dart over the water. The wind hums through tall grasses, and everything speaks of fruitfulness. Lot's men pitch the tents along the plain for the first time, and the herds feed in peace. There is no strife now, no arguing shepherds, no need to stretch the land's mercy. For a while, the choice seems blessed. Lot stands beneath his tent flap in the evenings, watching the sun fall behind the western ridges. The light gilds the edges of his fields, the river gleams like molten gold, and the sky softens to violet. In the distance, faint but unmistakable, he can see the walls of Sodom rising. The city looks magnificent from afar, a collection of towers and gates, a hub of trade, music and movement. To a wanderer along accustomed to open land, it appears like civilization itself, a place where life might finally find rhythm. But Scripture says quietly, "The men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly." That line stands like a shadow behind the beauty, a warning written in still air. Yet Lot does not know this in full. From where he stands, the city's sin is hidden by the distance, veiled by the mirage of prosperity. He sees its walls, not its heart. He sees its abundance, not its emptiness. Still, the seed of his future has been planted, not in soil, but in direction. His tent faces Sodom, and soon his life will lean that way. The days lengthen, and Lot's household grows accustomed to the plains. The Jordan sustains them, the land gives freely, and their tents multiply. Children play by the riverbank, and the servants speak of the markets in the city. How fine the cloth, how plentiful the grain, how lively the music. Lot listens, and curiosity begins to stir. Prosperity has its own gravity. It draws the heart closer to its source. Perhaps he wonders whether dwelling near the city might bring him nearer to comfort, to opportunity, to peace. And so, in time, he moves closer. No longer does he camp far in the open field. His tents now rest near the city's outer gates. The glow of torches at night flickers across his tent walls, and the sound of laughter drifts faintly through the dark. Life feels secure, abundant, rich, but something in the air has changed. where Abraham's tents were filled with the rhythm of prayer and the smoke of sacrifice. Lot's camp hums with the nearness of men's noise. The stars seem dimmer here, the nights shorter. The stillness that once marked the life of wandering begins to fade, replaced by the pulse of the city's nearness. A rhythm that is not faith but familiarity. In those quiet hours between dusk and dawn, perhaps he remembers the sound of Abraham's voice calling upon the Lord beside an altar of stones. The promise that the land, though unseen, would belong to his uncle's seed forever. The peace of living without walls. These memories might flicker in him like dying coals, warm but unattended. Yet the scripture is mercifully silent about his thoughts. It tells us only that he pitched his tent towards Sodom. That single act contains the slow arc of his future, the first subtle turn toward the city, whose sins cry out to heaven. Still, the Lord does not abandon him. Even now, unseen and unspoken, grace lingers over the plain. The God who remembers Abraham also remembers Lot. Though the path ahead will lead through fire and fear, the story is not yet one of judgment, but of choice. A choice made in daylight, for reasons that felt good and reasonable and wise. Night descends again. The river murmurs its ancient song. The wind moves softly over the grass. Lot's household sleeps, surrounded by the peace of abundance. The moonlight shimmers on the tents, and from a distance Sodom's walls glow faintly, a golden hue masking what stirs within. Tomorrow the city's gates will open to him. Tomorrow he will walk among its streets, speak with its people, trade in its markets. Tomorrow the boundary between tent and stone will blur a little more. For now, the night is still, and the valley rests in silence. The land seems to dream, unaware that beneath its green surface lies the seed of its own undoing. The well-watered plain, for all its beauty, carries the quiet pulse of fragility. In time, the river will still flow, but the cities it nourishes will turn to smoke. Lot cannot see that yet. He only knows that the land is good and that his choice has brought him comfort. In the soft dark he lifts his eyes once more toward the stars. They are the same stars Abraham looks upon that very night far to the west, where an altar stands beneath the same sky. One man prays beneath the open heavens. The other sleeps near the glow of human light. Between them stretches the plain, green by day, shadowed by night. A landscape that holds both blessing and ruin. And though the river hums, though the trees whisper, something ancient stirs beneath the soil. A tremor not of water, but of waiting. Before dawn, a wind rises from the valley, carrying with it the scent of the city and a faint unease. By evening, Lot will walk its streets for the first time, and the city of shifting shadows will begin to claim his story. Morning breaks over the valley with quiet splendor. The light glides across the Jordan, touching the plain with liquid gold. Birds rise from the reeds, and the city of Sodom wakes with sound and color. From the outer fields, where Lot's tents once stood, the hum of life now calls him inward. He has drawn nearer to the city, until the walls that once marked its distance now shadow his days. The gates of Sodom are grand, built of stone that gleams in the sun. Traders pass through them with camels heavy with spices and cloth. Voices rise in laughter and bargaining, and the scent of grain and wine lingers in the air. Within these gates, the pulse of human ambition beats strong. To live here is to be surrounded by abundance, to walk streets where nothing seems lacking. Lot has found a place among them. Scripture tells us that he sits in the gate, the seat of decision, the meeting point of the city's elders. It is a sign of standing, of influence, of belonging. Yet, even there, the air feels divided. Around him, the city's noise hums, bright but hollow. He lives among them, but his heart does not rest in their ways. Sodom is not a place of worship. The altars of the Lord do not rise here. Instead, the people bow to their own desires, pleasure, pride, and power. Their laughter echoes through the night, their feasts spill over with abundance, but kindness has grown scarce. The poor are ignored, the stranger mocked, the sacred forgotten. Compassion, that quiet thread that binds humanity, has long since frayed. And Lot, though righteous in his generation, feels the tension between where he lives and what he believes. The world around him moves in patterns he cannot fully join, yet neither can he fully leave. His home, his family, his herds, all are now woven into the life of the city. At night, he walks the narrow streets beneath lamps of oil. The sound of revelry drifts from open windows, and the air smells of wine and smoke. Sometimes, he lifts his eyes toward the hills and imagines Abraham's tents beneath the stars. The quiet faith of open skies, the steady rhythm of prayer. But those nights are long past. Between him and that life lies the weight of choice, the walls of Sodom and the comfort he has learned to need. Days turn to weeks, and the city's heartbeat grows louder. Sodom thrives on itself, its trade, its art, its pride. No one speaks of the Lord here, though his patience lingers unseen. The sins of the city have become its nature, its rhythm. To live in Sodom is to breathe its air, to feel its pull. Lot remains upright, but the ground beneath him trembles with moral decay. Still, Scripture calls him righteous. It is not a righteousness born of perfection, but of contrast. A heart that mourns what others celebrate. The wickedness around him vexes his soul, yet he stays. There is family here, a life he has built, and perhaps the faint hope that goodness might still find a place to stand. When travelers pass through, they speak of Sodom's beauty, of its gardens and feasts, its fountains and lights. From the outside, it gleams like a jewel, but those who stay long enough begin to see the cracks. The small cruelties that multiply in laughter, the way joy turns sharp, the way peace becomes performance. The city glitters, but its shine is not clean. It is the shimmer of water that hides a mire beneath. Lot's daughters grow amid this world, learning its songs. Hearing its laughter, his wife moves easily among the women of Sodom, her days filled with the rhythm of its markets and voices. For them, the city has become home. Its comforts are familiar, its dangers invisible. To leave it would seem madness. To stay feels natural. Lot watches, knowing what cannot yet be spoken. He has seen enough of righteousness to sense when it is absent. Yet even he does not imagine how deep the roots of corruption go. Sometimes he prays, quietly when no one sees, a small echo of the faith once shared with Abraham. The words fall into silence, swallowed by the city's noise. And yet, in heaven, they are heard. For far away, beyond the hills and plains, the Lord has heard another sound, the outcry of Sodom and Gomorrah. It rises not in words, but in the weight of their injustice, in the sorrow of the innocent, in the sins that darken the air. The cry has reached heaven's gate, and judgment begins to stir. But in Sodom the days go on. Markets open, music plays, and laughter fills the streets. The people are unaware of the shadow gathering above them. They live as though time were endless. as though nothing could interrupt their feast. Lot, moving through the city's rhythm, senses unease without understanding it. Something shifts in the wind, faint, almost imperceptible, but life continues, busy and full. He speaks kindly to those around him, helps the stranger when he can, and goes home each night beneath a sky that no longer feels the same. He is a man standing between two worlds, faith and familiarity, righteousness and routine. The plains that once promised peace now feel heavier, as though the very soil remembers what has been sown. The city gleams still, torches flickering, songs echoing down the streets. But in that light, the shadows deepen. They stretch long against the walls, spilling across the threshold of Lot's home. And though he cannot name it yet, the quiet before reckoning has begun. He will not be left there forever. Grace is already walking toward him, though it will come in a form he does not expect, and at a cost he cannot yet imagine. For now, the city sleeps beneath its illusion. The people dream of gold and laughter. The wind whispers through the streets, carrying no hint of fire. But somewhere in the night, an old promise stirs. The promise that justice will not stay silent and mercy will not be withheld. Lot lingers at his window, looking toward the hills. The stars above Sodom glow faintly through the haze, and he remembers when they seemed brighter. Somewhere beyond them, Abraham kneels in prayer, unaware that soon he will plead for the very city Lot now calls home. The night deepens. The lamps burn low. The city of Sodom, so full of life, so hollow of spirit, breathes in restless sleep. And beneath its shining surface, shadows shift and gather, waiting for the dawn that will divide light from darkness. Before long, the peace of the valley will tremble with the march of kings and the clash of empires. And Lot, caught within a war he did not choose, will learn how swiftly the walls of comfort can fall. The valley that once shimmered with peace now echoes with the sound of war. Morning light breaks upon the fields of Sodom, glancing off shields and spears, turning dust into fire. Where once Lot watched herds grazing and rivers winding, now armies move, kings from distant lands drawn together by greed and pride. In the 13th year of Kedoliamer's reign, rebellion stirs in the cities of the plain. Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and Bela rise against their oppressor. For 12 years they have served under foreign rule, sending tribute across the desert. But the 13th year brings defiance, a refusal to bow, a grasp for freedom. And so, in the 14th, the kings of the east march westward to reclaim their dominion. 4 kings against 5. The land groans beneath the weight of their armies. Kedoliamer of Elam leads the charge, joined by Tidal, king of nations, Amraphel of Shinar, and Arioch of Elasar. Together they sweep across the land like a storm, leaving silence in their wake. They strike first at the Rephaim in Ashtaroth Canaan, then at the Zuzim, the Emim, and the Horites in their mountain homes. Their path carves through the wilderness, past El Paran near the desert's edge. Then they turn north toward En Mishpat, smiting the Amalekites and the Amorites dwelling in Hazazon Tamar. Each victory feeds their momentum. Each conquest sharpens their hunger. And at last, the kings of the plain come forth. Sodom and Gomorrah leading, joined by their allies, they gather in the vale of Siddim, where bitumen pits scar the ground. The earth here is rich but treacherous, soft beneath its beauty. The two armies face each other under the heavy heat of the sun. Dust rises, mingled with the cry of men and the clash of weapons. The 5 kings stand defiant, but their unity falters. The ground itself turns against them. As the battle rages, the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah flee, and many of their men fall into the tar pits that dot the plain. The rest scatter to the mountains, leaving their cities unguarded. The conquerors sweep in like fire over dry grass. They take all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah, all their provisions, all their wealth. And among the captives, among the long shadows of prisoners, led away, is Lot, Abram's nephew, taken not for his deeds, but for his dwelling. The war passes like a storm, but its echo lingers. The land grows silent again, though the silence feels hollow. In the tents of Mamre the Amorite, a messenger runs breathless, his garments torn with dust. He brings word to Abram, the Hebrew, the wanderer who pitched his tent far from Sodom's gates. Content beneath the oaks of Mamre near Hebron, the man speaks quickly, his voice trembling. He tells of the war, the kings, the destruction, the captives, and then the name that changes everything. Lot. Abram listens in stillness. He does not speak at once. His eyes turn toward the horizon, toward the plains where his nephew once chose to dwell. The promise of green pastures has turned to ruin. The valley that shimmered with beauty now lies plundered. He gathers his trained servants, 318 men born in his own household. Not soldiers by trade, but loyal, steadfast men who share his faith and his courage. They prepare quietly, without spectacle, and set out under the cover of night. The journey is long, the road uncertain, but Abram's steps do not falter. The kings of the east march north, burdened with spoils. They rest in the northern lands, near Dan. There, under the stars, Abram divides his forces. His strategy is simple, his heart steadfast. In the darkness, they fall upon the enemy by night. The suddenness of the attack scatters the kings and their armies. Panic spreads like fire, and what began as conquest turns to retreat. Abram pursues them north to Hobah, beyond Damascus. When dawn breaks, the battle is done, the captives are freed, the goods are reclaimed, and Lot, weary, stunned, yet unharmed, is once again in his uncle's care. There is no song of triumph as they return, only the quiet relief of rescue. Abram's men move like shadows across the land, leading back those who were lost. When they reach the valley of Shaveh, the king's dale, the people of Sodom come out to meet them. The king of Sodom stands before Abram, his eyes hollow from the ruin of his city. He offers reward, a share of the spoils, gratitude in the language of wealth, but Abram's heart is unmoved by gold. He lifts his hand toward heaven and speaks softly, solemnly. I have lift up mine hand unto the Lord, the Most High God, the possessor of heaven and earth, that I will not take from a thread even to a shoe latchet, and that I will not take anything that is thine, lest thou shouldest say, I have made Abram rich. The words fall like stone into still water, calm but unyielding. Abram knows his wealth comes from the Lord, not from kings or plunder. Before the king of Sodom can reply, another figure approaches, Melchizedek, king of Salem, priest of the Most High God. He brings bread and wine, symbols of peace and blessing. His presence radiates stillness. In his voice is no demand, no pride, only reverence. Blessed be Abram of the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth, he says. And blessed be the Most High God, which hath delivered thine enemies into thy hand. Abram bows his head, and from all the goods recovered, he gives Melchizedek a tenth, not to man, but to God, in acknowledgement of divine favor. The two kings stand side by side. one who rules by might, the other by faith. Between them, Abram chooses reverence over reward. His path remains separate, untouched by the world's bargains. Lot stands nearby, silent. He has been rescued, his life spared, his goods restored. Yet even now, his heart leans towards Sodom. He will return there, drawn by its comfort and familiarity. His deliverance is real, but it is not transformation. The hand that saved him releases him again, and he walks back toward the city whose fate is already sealed. Abram watches him go, saying nothing. Some lessons cannot be taught by words. The land quiets once more, and the plains of the Jordan glisten under the evening sun. For a moment, it seems peace has returned. But the story of Sodom is not finished. Mercy has intervened once, yet its patience will not last forever. For every rescued heart that returns to its ruin, the weight of judgment grows. Abram turns his face toward the hills of Hebron. There, beneath the oaks, he builds again his altar to the Lord, a place of remembrance, of faith renewed. The smoke of his offering curls upward, soft against the dusk. It carries no demand, only gratitude. For deliverance given, for righteousness preserved, for mercy that acts even when unasked. In the quiet that follows, the wind shifts through the valley. The plains seem peaceful again, but beneath the calm, something unresolved lingers. Lot leaves, yet his soul remains bound to the city. Abram knows this. Knows that peace built on comfort alone cannot stand. The stars rise above them, one by one. Abram lifts his eyes, remembering the promise spoken beneath these very skies. A covenant not of land or power, but of descendants as countless as the stars. Each one a light against darkness, a reminder that faith endures beyond ruin. He lies awake long after the camp has gone still. The night air hums softly, carrying distant echoes of battle and blessing alike. Somewhere far off, Sodom begins again its laughter, its commerce, its restless pursuit of pleasure. Lot is home once more, though the word home has grown fragile. And in the hush between breaths, Abram senses it, the fragile peace before reckoning, the grace that precedes fire. For mercy has done its part. The next chapter will belong to justice. Beyond the hills, unseen and unimagined, 3 travelers are already walking toward Abraham's tent, and with them comes a whisper from heaven, a promise renewed and a warning soon to burn. The dust has not yet settled when Lot breathes again the air of freedom. The clang of iron fades. The cries of battle dissolve into the wind that blows across the valley of Sodom. Abraham has gone back to his tent in Hebron, his heart at peace, the rescue complete. But Lot, once captive, now delivered, stands between mercy and return. Uncertain where his steps belong, he could have gone north with his uncle, back to the highlands where the tents breathe the scent of cedar and faith. He could have rested again beneath the stars that watched the covenant unfold. The God of promises, the altar of smoke and prayer. But his eyes, weary though they are, still turn eastward, toward the plain that once shimmered like Eden in the morning light. Toward the city whose gates, though charred with war, still open wide to the comfort he remembers. The path back to Sodom feels almost fated. Familiar and heavy with silence, the shepherds who once quarrelled with his are scattered or slain, the kings who captured him routed. He walks through fields trampled by armies, where the soil smells of iron and ash, yet the valley still glows with its strange beauty. The Jordan still winds like a silver thread, and the palms still whisper in the wind. The city is wounded but not destroyed, broken but standing. Lot tells himself there is safety in rebuilding, that life must continue, that perhaps this time it will be different. He enters Sodom quietly. The streets, though cracked, still pulse with movement. Merchants shouting half-heartedly, women carrying jars through dust, children running where the walls still hold. No one remembers the war as more than a passing shadow. It is as though the city has decided to forget. And Lot, though he carries the memory of deliverance, lets the forgetting take him too. In the evenings, he sits at his doorway and watches the sun fall behind the hills. Smoke from burnt offerings rises from afar. Abraham's prayers drifting into the heavens. Lot feels the distance between them like the widening of years. He remembers his uncle's voice, calm and steady, the man who refused reward from kings, who built no walls, who owned no city but the horizon. And he wonders if he should have gone with him. But the city hums with its strange rhythm, and the hum becomes habit, and habit becomes home. Lot tries to live righteously within the walls, to show kindness where cruelty has taken root, to guard his house against the decay that seeps through every door. Yet righteousness feels fragile here, like a candle burning in wind. He gives shelter, he speaks gently, he turns his eyes from the excess that parades through the streets. Still, the city presses against him. The laughter that once lured him now unsettles him. The glitter of its nights feels hollow. But he stays. Perhaps out of duty, perhaps out of weariness, or perhaps because the heart, once drawn, does not easily let go. Sometimes, in the stillness before dawn, Lot hears echoes of the battle, the clang of chains, the cries of captives, and the memory of Abraham's rescue floods him with both gratitude and shame. Gratitude that mercy found him once, shame that he returned to the place from which mercy had drawn him out. He prays quietly, his words uncertain, his faith more whisper than flame. He speaks to a God he cannot yet see clearly, hoping that heaven still hears him amid the noise of Sodom. The years drift like slow smoke. The plains recover, their grass is green again. Trade returns, the markets swell, and Sodom's pride rises higher than its walls. Lot becomes known among them, a man of quiet authority, seated at the gate where the elders judge. He is respected, but never quite one of them. They laugh louder than he does, drink deeper, dream shorter. He watches, listens, waits, as if some part of him still expects another messenger to come walking down the road, calling him back to tents and stars and altars, but none come. The days pass, and heaven is silent, or so it seems. Then one night, a strange unease steals into the wind. The air grows still, heavy with something unseen. A shadow seems to hang over the valley, faint yet undeniable, like the hush before a storm that has already begun to move beyond the horizon. Lot looks out from his rooftop, and the city below flickers with torches and laughter, unaware of what approaches. He cannot name the feeling, only sense that the quiet is not peace but warning. Somewhere beyond sight, the heavens begin to count, and in that stillness, Lot's heart stirs. Faintly, painfully, he thinks again of Abraham, his tent open to strangers, his prayers rising like incense, his trust unbroken by distance or time. Lot wonders if mercy, once given, can fade, or if it waits, patient and unspent, beyond the choices that lead us astray. He does not know that even now, beyond the hills, angels are being sent, that the same mercy which once rode through the battlefield is preparing to walk through the city gates. The night deepens. Lot turns from the window and closes his door against the darkness. Outside, Sodom hums its restless song, confident, radiant, unrepentant. Inside, a single lamp burns low, its flame trembling like faith in a storm. Lot lies down beside the hum of distant laughter, and for a moment he almost believes the city will endure. But mercy does not sleep, and heaven does not forget. Beyond the hills, footsteps approach, two travelers cloaked in dust and light, carrying both warning and deliverance. Soon, they will stand at the city gate, and Lot will open his door once more. Night presses upon Sodom like a living thing. The air is heavy, thick with dust and heat, the scent of wine still lingering from the feasts that never end. From afar, the valley glows with 1,000 lamps, but within its heart something darker burns, not light but pride, kindled into flame. Inside Lot's house, the angels sit quietly. They have eaten the bread he set before them. They have watched him move with anxious courtesy, the kind of man who still remembers reverence in a place that has forgotten it. Their eyes, calm yet distant, rest upon the door as if listening to what the city itself is whispering through the streets. Outside, the murmur begins again, first faint like wind stirring dry leaves, then louder. Footsteps, voices, shouts, a wave of noise gathering from every alley, every courtyard. Word has spread. The men of the city, both young and old, converge upon the gate of Lot's dwelling until the street heaves like a sea in storm. They come not with hunger, but with mockery and demand. Torches flare. Lot turns cruel. Their words strike the walls like stones. Where are the men who came into you tonight? They cry. Bring them out to us that we may know them. The words curdle the air. Their meaning is no secret, nor their intent. It is a violation, a desecration, the very language of a heart too far from conscience to tremble. Lot's blood runs cold. He feels the echo of every sin that has ever darkened this valley. Greed, cruelty, corruption, now fused into a single moment of demand. He steps toward the door. Behind him, his daughters cling to each other. His wife trembles. The angels remain silent. Lot opens the door a narrow span and steps into the torchlight. The night breathes heat against his face. Before him stands the multitude, eyes gleaming, mouths twisting in the half-mad laughter of those who mistake desire for power. Lot lifts his hands, trembling. "Brothers," he says softly, "I pray you, do not so wickedly." A murmur ripples through the crowd, a sound between disbelief and derision. He goes on, pleading, desperate to touch whatever spark of reason might still exist. "Behold, I have 2 daughters who have not known man. Let me, I pray you, bring them out to you, and do with them as is good in your eyes. Only unto these men do nothing, for therefore came they under the shadow of my roof." His words fall like stones into a void. The crowd recoils not in shame but in anger. Lot's plea for mercy is met with scorn. "This one came in to sojourn," they sneer, "and he will needs be a judge. Now we will deal worse with thee than with them." They surge forward, striking at the door, reaching for him with hands that know no restraint. Torches sputter in the press of bodies. Lot stumbles backward, his face pale in the firelight. The roar of the mob grows. A single, terrifying voice made of hundreds, blind with fury. Then light. Not from torch or flame, but a sudden brilliance that slices through the dark. The angels reach out and seize Lot, pulling him inside with strength that feels both human and divine. The door slams shut. Outside, chaos erupts. Cries turn to confusion, to pain, to terror. For the men of the city are struck with blindness, every one of them, from the youngest to the oldest, so that they grope for the door and cannot find it. They claw at the walls, stumble against one another, their torches falling into the dust. Their laughter turns to curses, their boldness dissolves into fear, and still they persist, staggering in their blindness, unwilling to surrender the evil that now devours them from within. Inside, the silence is almost holy. Lot collapses against the wall, chest heaving. His daughters weep softly. His wife stands frozen, her face pale as salt. The angels look to him, their calm undisturbed by the storm outside. Their voices, when they speak, carry the weight of heaven's final patience. "Have you anyone else here?" they ask. "Sons-in-law, sons, daughters, whomever you have in this city, bring them out of this place." Their words are not suggestion, but command. "For we will destroy this place, because the cry of it is great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord has sent us to destroy it." The cry, the outcry, that word hangs in the air like thunder. It is the same cry that rose to heaven from Abel's blood, the same cry of the oppressed, the broken, the forgotten. Every cruelty, every injustice that Sodom birthed has been heard, gathered, and weighed. Heaven's mercy has not run dry, but its silence has ended. Lot's breath catches. He runs into the night again, stumbling over stones slick with spilled oil, heart pounding. He reaches the homes of his sons-in-law, the men who have taken his daughters to wed, and he calls out to them in urgency, "Up, get you out of this place, for the Lord will destroy this city." But they laugh. To them, it sounds like jest. They see no fire, no angel, no wrath, only the night and an anxious old man crying of judgment. Their laughter echoes behind him as he turns back toward his home, the echo following like a curse. When Lot returns, the angels are waiting. The door is barred, the household gathered, trembling in the fading hours before dawn. The sound outside has changed, not rage now, but confusion, wandering, blindness. The city groans like something alive, wounded yet unrepentant. Lot sits beside his daughters. He feels the heaviness of what has been spoken, the weight of what is about to come. All his years in this city, all his attempts to live rightly within its walls, seem now like a fragile thread burning in fire. He has tried to belong to both worlds, the tents of faith and the cities of ease, and finds himself belonging fully to neither. In the stillness, he looks to the angels and whispers, "Will not the Lord spare them?" But they do not answer. Their silence is not cruelty, but truth, for the time of pleading has passed. Somewhere beyond these walls, the patience of heaven has turned to sorrow. The door remains closed. The light outside, faint and cold, begins to pale toward morning. Lot's wife leans close to him, her eyes wide with fear. "Will we die?" she whispers. He has no answer. Only the sound of the wind rising from the desert, moving through the streets as if gathering the last breath of the city it will soon consume. Heaven's count is nearly complete. Before the first ray of sun touches the valley, they will be led away, the hand of mercy pulling them from what they cannot save. For the outcry has reached its end, and the city's measure is full. Lot closes his eyes. The faces of his sons-in-law, their laughter fading, haunt him. He thinks of Abraham somewhere beyond the hills, perhaps still praying for this place, for him. He thinks of how mercy once found him in battle and wonders if it will find him again at dawn. Outside, Sodom sleeps unaware, its streets still, its lamps guttering low. The sky begins to stir, faint light touching the edges of the hills like the breath before a storm. The angels rise, their faces unreadable, their silence charged with purpose. Lot feels it, the trembling of the ground, the stillness of everything living, as if the earth itself holds its breath. He takes his wife's hand. The city that once promised comfort has become a waiting tomb. And still, even as judgment draws near, mercy lingers a moment longer, in the grasp of a hand that will not let go. Before the sun breaks over the plain, the angels will speak again, not to warn but to command. And in that dawn, Lot will learn how mercy must sometimes drag us from the fire we refuse to leave. The sky holds its breath. Dawn is not gentle this time. It does not glide over the city as it used to, gilding its walls and softening its edges. It comes instead with warning, pale and sharp, like light before a blade. The air itself seems strained, ready to split. Lot stands in his house, weary from a night that has broken something inside him. The echoes of the mob still cling to the stones outside. The scent of fear still clings to the door frame. His daughters huddle near him, eyes hollow with disbelief, clutching at their cloaks. His wife moves through the room as if half anchored in two worlds. One already burning in heaven's decree, the other still whispering comfort in the walls she built and the streets she knew. Then comes the voice, not thunderous, but final. Up. Take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, or you will be swept away in the punishment of the city. Lot's hands tremble. His heart staggers. The words fall heavy, yet his feet do not move. He looks toward the window. And there, through the thin veil of morning, Sodom still glimmers faintly. The city looks innocent again, washed in gold. Somewhere merchants are stirring. Somewhere laughter begins anew, unaware that it will end before noon. He cannot reconcile the beauty of that light with the horror he knows it conceals. He cannot imagine life beyond these walls, beyond the noise, the market, the human familiarity of sin and song. His memories have roots here, tangled and deep. To tear them free would be to tear part of himself. So he hesitates, and in that hesitation, mercy intervenes. 2 hands, firm, unseen, undeniable, seize him. One on his wrist, one on his shoulder. He does not resist, though his heart lags behind. His wife gasps, startled by the suddenness of grace. His daughters stumble as the angels lead them out, each step away from the gate like a tearing, like flesh pulled from its longing. Outside, the morning expands, pale light over ash-colored land. The plain stretches wide, and Sodom lies below like a bowl of smoke waiting to be filled. Behind them, silence. Ahead of them, command. Escape for your life. Do not look behind you, nor stay in all the plain. Escape to the mountains, lest you be consumed. The words are simple, but they weigh more than stone. To not look back? Can the heart obey such a thing? Every backward glance is a kind of love, a kind of mourning. Yet this is not the time for mourning. It is the hour for leaving. Lot looks toward the mountains, the same ridges that once marked Abram's path. Far away, their shapes rise like arms of the earth reaching toward God. But they are far, too far for his tired body, for the frail steps of his daughters. The thought of the climb overwhelms him. His voice breaks through the stillness. Desperate, human, pleading, "Please know my lords. Behold, your servant has found grace in your sight, but I cannot escape to the mountains, lest some evil overtake me and I die. Behold, this city is near to flee to, and it is small. Let me escape there. Is it not a little one? The angels exchange no visible thought, no visible disapproval. Only one nods, a gesture both merciful and resigned. See, I have granted you this favor also. Hurry, escape there, for I cannot do anything until you arrive. And so Zoar, the little refuge, becomes the last mercy on the plain. They move swiftly, guided by divine urgency. The wind begins to rise, strange and electric. The ground seems to hum beneath their feet. The color of the air changes, gathering a hue of copper and storm. Lot's daughters run close beside him, their faces streaked with sweat and dust. Behind them, his wife's steps falter. She glances back once, not yet in defiance, but in ache as though memory has tugged her sleeve. Lot does not see the moment. He does not hear the breath catch in her throat. He is only aware of the tightening grip on his hand. His daughters pulling him forward, the world trembling beneath them. And then, silence. A silence so vast it seems to erase sound itself. Even the wind pauses, as if heaven has drawn in one long, terrible breath. Lot turns his eyes forward, forcing his gaze towards Zoar's low walls. Behind him, something begins to shift. A roar that is not thunder, a glow that is not sunrise. The sky blooms with fire. It falls not in streaks, but in waves, dense, molten, unstoppable. Sulphur rains down upon the plain, each drop igniting what it touches. Sodom's gardens become torches. Its towers bend under the weight of wrath. Gomorrah's fountains burst into steam. The valley becomes a furnace, the river a boiling scar. Lot does not look back. He dares not. The command is a chain he clings to, his last thread of obedience. He walks as if through grief itself, every step an act of surrender. By the time he reaches Zoar, his legs give way. The earth trembles beneath him. The air reeks of salt and smoke. He collapses beside his daughters, staring at the edge of the sky, which still burns with the memory of what was. The cries have faded, the cities are gone, and the silence that follows is almost unbearable, too vast, too final. He does not yet know that his wife stands frozen on the plain, turned to a pillar of salt. The price of one backward glance, one longing stronger than command. He does not yet know that her figure will remain there, an unmoving witness to both love and disobedience, glistening in the desert light. For now, he only breathes. He clutches the dust with trembling fingers, whispering words that are neither prayer nor lament. Around him, the sky begins to dim again, the light folding into shadow. He has been spared, but not unchanged. He has been pulled away, but not healed. The world that remains is small, a refuge, yes, but also a tomb of memory. The sound of destruction lingers still, humming beneath his ribs like a second heartbeat. And as night begins to fall, Lot lifts his eyes toward the distant mountains once more, the same mountains he feared to climb. They rise beyond Zoar, silent and waiting, as if they know that his story is not yet over. Beyond the ashes, the mountains wait, quiet, ancient, patient, and somewhere in their shadow, the next chapter begins. The mountains rise like ancient sentinels, dark against the dim horizon. Their silence is vast, unbroken, the kind that swallows even memory. Between their folds, a cave waits, its mouth shadowed, its heart cool and still. Into this hollow place, Lot and his daughters come. Their steps are slow, their garments torn, their faces smudged with ash. Behind them, far below, the plain still smoulders, a scar upon the earth where cities once breathed. The world feels emptied, no sound of herds, no laughter, no voices calling across fields. only the wind, low and ceaseless, moving over the rock as if searching for what once was alive. The air smells faintly of sulphur, though days have passed since the fire. Every breath they take carries the memory of smoke. Lot sits near the mouth of the cave. His daughters huddle deeper inside, seeking warmth in the cool stone. The light fades early in the mountains. The sun sinks quickly behind the ridges, leaving only the pale wash of dusk. Shadows gather, and with them, the weight of all that has been lost. He does not speak. Words feel too fragile for a world so broken. The silence is not peace. It is the silence of aftermath, of hearts too full of sorrow to even pray. The hills around them seem untouched by what has fallen below, yet they bear witness. From their heights, Lot can still see faint plumes rising from the valley, thin, dark pillars curling into heaven like incense from a grave. Somewhere in that smoke stands the pillar of salt, the frozen outline of a woman he loved. He does not go down to find her. He could not bear to see her face turned forever toward what cannot return. So he stays, as one buried alive in the echo of mercy. Days blur into one another. Time loses its shape, they live by what they carried. A little bread, a little oil, water drawn from a spring hidden in the rocks. His daughters move with quiet diligence, gathering twigs, preparing small fires, whispering to each other in tones so soft they almost disappear. Lot watches them, their forms dim in the flickering light, and feels both gratitude and grief. They are all he has left. At night, he lies awake, staring into the dark. The cave's ceiling looms close, yet the space feels endless. He listens to the wind sighing through cracks in the stone. It sounds almost like the sea that once bordered the valley before it burned. Sometimes he thinks he hears voices carried on it. The echo of markets, the murmur of neighbors, the laughter of children in the streets of Sodom. Then he remembers that all of it is gone, consumed, erased. Like handwriting washed away by rain, he closes his eyes and in the quiet one thought repeats. How did it come to this? He remembers the beginning. The wide plains of Canaan, the herds grazing peacefully, the gentle parting between him and Abraham. He had chosen what seemed good, the fertile land, the well-watered valley. He remembers the day he pitched his tent near Sodom, not knowing that every step toward comfort carried him closer to ruin. It was not rebellion, not wickedness that guided him, only the human hunger for stability, for beauty, for belonging. Yet that hunger had led him here, a cave above a world turned to ash. He wonders if Abraham still prays for him. He imagines his uncle standing on some distant hill, gazing down at the smoke that still coils from the plain, his heart heavy with compassion. He remembers how Abraham once risked all to rescue him. A love so steadfast that even now, its echo warms him in this cold place. Lot lifts his eyes toward the stars, though the night clouds veil most of them. For a moment, he sees a single one, faint but steady. It flickers like hope, far, distant, but not gone. He tries to pray, but the words dissolve before they form. He feels unworthy of speech, as if his voice would stain the air. Yet in his silence, a kind of understanding grows, that mercy is not comfort, but endurance. That sometimes being spared means learning to live among ruins. His daughters whisper again. Their voices carry through the cave, low and uncertain. He cannot hear their words, only their tone. Fear mingled with the ache of isolation. There is no world left beyond these hills. No neighbors, no kin, no future that they can see. In their young minds, and the world has ended, and they are its last survivors. Lot does not know this yet, but their fear will soon take root in desperate thought. The cave's silence will grow heavier, and the echo of the past will twist into an act that will carry sorrow through generations. But tonight, that darkness still sleeps. Tonight, they are only 3 broken souls beneath a weary sky. He breathes deeply and listens to the wind outside. It hums through the cracks like a lullaby, the sound of the world learning to be quiet again. In that sound, he almost finds rest. The night deepens. The fire burns low. His daughters sleep, curled close together, their faces turned inward like petals closed at dusk. Lot watches them, their innocence, their fragility, and something like a prayer stirs in him after all. Not words, but yearning. That somehow from this silence, life might yet rise again. He steps outside the cave. The air is cold, the stars dim behind a veil of smoke. Below, the valley lies in darkness, the ground shimmering faintly with salt. The moonlight touches the rim of the hills, painting them silver. He looks down upon the desolation and feels both the ache of loss and the quiet of completion. As if judgment, in finishing its work, has left behind a stillness that might one day hold peace. He stands there a long time, until the horizon begins to pale. The first light of dawn reaches the highest peaks, spilling slowly into the folds of rock. A new day, thin and uncertain, begins. Lot turns back into the cave. His daughters stir, their eyes opening to the dim light. He sits beside them and breaks the last of the bread. The simple act feels sacred. For the first time in many days he speaks. "We are alive," he says quietly, though his voice trembles. "And the Lord has spared us." The words fall like stones into water, rippling through the silence. They eat in quiet, the fire rekindled to a small flame. Outside, the world waits, vast, wounded, and silent. The cave feels both prison and refuge, cradle and grave, yet within its walls, breath endures. And where breath endures, so does the faint possibility of tomorrow. Lot lifts his eyes once more toward the light creeping across the rocks. He does not know where the path will lead, nor what sorrow still waits in its shadow. But for this moment, there is still morning, still breath, still the fragile pulse of mercy. He closes his eyes and listens again to the wind. It carries no answers, only the echo of what was, and the faintest promise of what might be rebuilt. The dawn spreads over the mountains, soft and colourless, touching the mouth of the cave. Lot breathes the thin air of survival, not yet knowing what sorrow his daughters will bring. In the silence of the hills, a new shadow begins to stir. The daughters plan. The fire has long died, but the smoke of memory still lingers over the plain. Below the hills where Lot hides, the land once called Sodom is now only dust, a silent basin where the salt wind moans through emptiness. The earth remembers what men forget. In the cave above that wasteland, time folds in on itself. The days are without sun, the nights without song. Lot sits against the rough wall, staring into shadows that flicker with the last of the firewood. His daughters move quietly, their faces pale with thought. The world, to them, has ended. They have seen the wrath of heaven swallow every living thing they knew. No tents remain, no neighbours, no sound of flocks. The silence is complete, and in that silence, fear begins to take form. Lot is old now. The lines on his face are not only from age, but from grief. Each crease a record of what was lost. His wife turned to salt. His city turned to flame. His kin scattered. He murmurs prayers that drift into stone. His daughters listen, but the words bring no comfort, for the world has narrowed to this cave and their father's fading voice. The elder daughter watches the horizon through the mouth of the cave. The land below glows faintly at dawn, the color of ash and rose. She remembers the men of Sodom, the laughter, the noise, the life that now seems like a dream too loud to have been real. In her heart, she clings to a thought. Perhaps they are the last. The flood of fire has taken all others. To her, this is not disbelief. It is the only way her mind can make sense of such loss. That night, while Lot sleeps in weariness, the daughters whisper. Their words are small, trembling with both fear and purpose. There is no man left in the earth. The elder says, to come in unto us after the manner of all the earth. It is a strange reasoning born not of sin's hunger, but of despair's confusion. They believe the human story will end unless they act. And so they weave a plan, quiet, desperate, and wrong in its reasoning, yet rooted in the same sorrow that drove Eve to reach for fruit. The elder daughter takes the first step. She gives her father wine, strong and bitter, and when he sleeps, heavy and unaware, she lies beside him. The night passes in silence, not passion, not joy, only the heavy breath of survival misremembered as duty. When morning comes, she says nothing. The next night, the younger follows, moved by her sister's urging, by the same shadowed belief that this act will preserve life, not corrupt it. Lot remains unaware, his mind veiled by drink and grief. Days pass. The cave becomes smaller with each thought unspoken. The daughters carry within them the consequence of that choice. Not only in body, but in the secret weight of shame that no words can name. Yet, even from such darkness, life stirs. The elder bears a son. She names him Moab, meaning from father. The younger bears another, and names him Ben-Ami, meaning son of my people. They cradle their children beneath the same light that once burned over Sodom, not knowing that these small cries will echo across generations. Lot holds the infants in his arms, his eyes dim with memory. Perhaps he does not understand the full truth of their birth, or perhaps the heart chooses mercy when understanding would destroy it. He sees in them only continuation, a fragile thread of life stretching beyond ruin. The years move quietly. Lot grows older, his steps slower, his gaze turned often toward the horizon. He never returns to Abraham, never descends again into the plains. The world has burned behind him, and though his daughter's sons grow strong, he remains a man of exile. Scripture fades his figure gently. No further deeds, no final words. Only that he lived and died and left behind 2 lines that will shape the edges of the promised land. Moab and Ammon grow into tribes, into nations. They build cities upon the plateaus east of the Jordan, high, dry lands that overlook what was once the valley of Sodom. From the bones of one man's fear rise kingdoms, both kin and adversary to Israel. When the children of Israel later wander the wilderness, they will pass by the borders of these lands. The Lord will tell Moses, do not harass Moab, nor contend with them in battle, for I have given Ar unto the children of Lot for a possession. And again, do not distress the children of Ammon. In those commands lies a faint tenderness, a remembrance that even in flawed beginnings, there was once kinship. But time, as it does, will turn remembrance into rivalry. The Moabites will entice Israel into idolatry, and prophets will speak against them. The Ammonites will stand on the opposite hills, taunting, attacking, then falling back into obscurity. yet their names will never be erased. For they are bound to the same ancient story, the one that began in a tent beside Abraham, when Lot looked eastward toward beauty. The story of Moab and Ammon is not one of glory, nor of shame alone. It is the slow unfolding of consequence, how a single night, born of fear, can ripple into centuries of history. And yet, even within that lineage, grace finds a way to return. For from Moab will one day come Ruth, a woman of faith who leaves her gods, her land, her people, to follow the God of Israel. Through her will come David, and through David, the line of the Messiah. Out of Lot's shadowed descent, light will eventually rise. Lot never knows this. His life ends somewhere beyond the record of words, quiet as dust settling after a storm. The world moves on, nations grow, wars flare and fade. But his story lingers like the echo of a sigh through the desert. A man once torn between promise and desire, whose legacy became a paradox of both ruin and redemption. And so, in the quiet of the ancient hills, the cave that once held sorrow becomes only a hollow in stone. The wind still moves through it, carrying grains of salt from the plain below, the remnants of a city, a wife, a past. But among those grains are also the seeds of nations, the fragile proof that life continues, even after judgment. Lot's tale ends not in flame, but in lineage, in the tender, complicated persistence of humanity itself. From the ashes of one man's fear, the roots of nations take hold. Yet beneath their soil lies the whisper of mercy, that even in the shadow of loss, God remembers. And in that remembrance, the story fades gently into silence toward the echo beneath the dust. The story of Lot grows quiet now, like a lamp burning low in a room once bright. The fire that once consumed cities has long gone out, leaving behind a valley that sleeps beneath layers of salt and silence. Yet silence, too, has a voice. It hums faintly through the stones, through the wind that sighs across the Dead Sea's lifeless water. If one listens, truly listens, it sounds like breath, like memory exhaling through time. Where once were walls and markets and laughter, there is only desolation. The plain of Sodom lies still, its soil hardened by heat and memory. The land itself remembers. It bears no fruit, no song of bird or beast, only the low shimmering of salt beneath the sun. A place once envied now exists as a mirror to the consequence of desire, shining and empty all at once. Generations rise and fall, and the story of Lot passes from mouth to mouth. His name becomes a shadow in Scripture, a caution whispered beside fires when the wind turns east. Remember Lot. The elders say, not with scorn, but with sorrow, for his tale is not merely about punishment, it is about how the human heart can wander too far from its tent of faith, and how even then, mercy follows close behind. Abraham's lineage spreads across the desert, carrying the promise of a covenant made beneath stars. Yet somewhere beyond those encampments, the descendants of Lot, Moab and Ammon, build their own altars, their own songs, their own pride. They do not forget their origin, though they seldom speak it aloud. Perhaps they too feel the echo of their grandfather's grief in the quiet moments. A grief buried but never gone. The Dead Sea, that silent witness, still breathes with strange life. Its waters are heavy with salt, its surface so dense that nothing sinks, not even sorrow. Travelers who pass its edges describe the scent of sulfur that still lingers, the way the air seems thick with an invisible memory. They call it the Sea of Lot, as if naming it could keep the story alive, and perhaps that is what the land itself wishes. not to be forgotten, but to remind. The wind over the Dead Sea does not rush, it drifts. It gathers the salt and carries it across centuries, across tongues and tribes. It dusts the tents of wanderers, the robes of prophets, the stones of cities yet to be built. It is as though every grain seeks to whisper one truth, that not all beauty endures and not all comfort saves. Lot's story, when read in full, is not the tale of a man condemned, but of a man remembered. The scripture says simply, God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow. That single phrase, soft and spare, holds an ocean of mercy. Lot was spared not because he was perfect, but because he was loved, because someone interceded for him, because heaven's justice still made room for grace. We often imagine divine memory as vast and unfathomable. Yet here, it is intimate. To be remembered by God is to be held even in failure. It is to be gathered from the edges of ruin and brought into safety, even when the eyes are still wet with regret. In Lot's rescue, a quiet truth endures. Mercy is not earned, it is extended. The years after Sodom's fall are hidden, wrapped in the folds of time. Scripture does not tell us where Lot is buried or whether he ever saw Abraham again. Perhaps he lived out his days near the lands of Moab, watching his grandsons grow into men who would shape kingdoms. Perhaps he walked at dusk along the hills, gazing down at the wasteland below, and wondered if the heart could ever fully escape what it once desired. If one could stand there now, upon the ancient ridge overlooking the southern end of the Dead Sea, the horizon would seem endless. The air would shimmer in the heat, the stones beneath the feet warm with an ancient ache. The mind would drift easily to thought that this place was once full of life, laughter, and trade, that here a man once chose with his eyes and lost with his heart. And yet not all is ruin. The same God who allowed fire to fall also allowed mercy to remain. The same land that burned now lies beneath a sky that still bears stars. The same stars under which Abraham prayed for his nephew. Time has not erased the mark of judgment, but neither has it erased the possibility of remembrance. For from Lot's bloodline will come, generations later, Ruth of Moab, the woman whose loyalty becomes a song of faith. From her will come David, and from David, the Christ. It is one of Scripture's gentlest ironies, that from the ashes of Sodom's night, a thread of redemption is woven into eternity. What began in fear ends in faith. What was born in shame becomes a vessel for salvation. Even the dust carries a promise. The echo beneath the dust, then, is not only warning, it is also wonder. It asks us to see the long arc of mercy that bends across human frailty. Lot's choices cost him much, his peace, his home, his wife. Yet even so, God's memory of him was not erased. Mercy remembered him, and through him, mercy would one day redeem the world he once lost. There is tenderness in that, a reminder that divine love is not fragile, it endures beyond our errors, that the salt-crusted plain, once a symbol of ruin, can become a symbol of resilience. For though nothing grows there, it still reflects the sky with perfect clarity. And perhaps that is the lesson of plain, that some places exist not to produce, but to remind. The Dead Sea does not bear fruit, yet it bears reflection. Its still surface mirrors the heavens above, teaching the eyes to look upward. It is the earth's way of saying, even here, light finds a way to return. Lot's footsteps fade with the centuries, his tent long gone, his name spoken softly in Scripture's margins. But his story lingers like a pulse beneath the soil, a story about what the heart chooses and what heaven redeems. In every age, people stand as he once did, between tents and cities, between promise and desire, between what glitters and what endures. The echo beneath the dust is their inheritance, a quiet call to remember that even when our choices crumble, mercy does not. It moves like wind through ruins, like water through salt, like memory through time. If you close your eyes, you might hear it, that faint, trembling sound beneath history's noise. It is not the voice of judgment, but of love that refuses to forget. The voice that once said, "Flee for your life," still whispers through the centuries, "Do not look back, for I am already ahead of you." The plain sleeps beneath its crust of salt, and above it the stars burn in their quiet watch. The land has learned to hold both warning and wonder in one breath. Lot's story ends here, not in triumph or defeat, but in stillness, a stillness that carries both sorrow and grace. And as the wind crosses the valley once more, the grains of salt shift softly, like memory turning a final page. Somewhere beyond, the line of Lot continues. Through Moab, through Ruth, through a story that will outlast kingdoms. Because even in ashes, God remembered Lot, and in remembering him, he remembered us all. The plains grow silent, but memory does not sleep. Beneath the salt and dust, the echo endures. The sound of mercy that remembers, and from that remembrance, the next story will rise. Another tale of ruin and redemption, whispered through time's quiet breath. And so, as the smoke drifts upward from the valley of memory, the story of Lot settles into silence. What began as a tale of turning and loss becomes, in the hush of reflection, something softer. A reminder that even in the ruins, grace lingers like the last warmth of a fading ember. The cities fall, the plains grow quiet, but mercy does not vanish. It moves unseen, like dawn beneath ash. Tonight, perhaps, we have not only followed a man through fire, but found in his story a mirror of our own fragile hopes, the longing to choose well, the ache of looking back, the mercy that waits even when we falter. History, after all, is not only what was, it is what still hums beneath our ribs, ancient and alive. Thank you for sharing this quiet hour with me, for listening, breathing, and remembering that you too are part of this long, gentle echo. Somewhere across the world, others have listened under the same sky. And though we rest in different rooms, the story has gathered us softly into one candlelit moment. So now, let the past loosen its hold. Let the dust of old cities settle. Breathe deeply. Feel the body grow heavier, the heart lighter. Let your mind drift towards stillness, as if walking through a field after rain, where every step sinks quietly into the earth. May your dreams tonight be kind. May they carry you through the hush between worlds. This has been the Sleeping Hourglass, where the past tucks you in. If this story brought you peace, you are always welcome to return. There will be more nights, more candles, more echoes waiting to be heard. Until then, rest easy, traveler of time. The fire has dimmed, the stars are watching. Good night.